I got 2 questions about 4:30 this afternoon. So I would appreciate the questions as soon as possible. I've been spending most Sunday afternoons studying, which is fine because I like it. But first question. We are in Chronicles, by the way. We finished the outline last week. Went through 1st and 2nd Chronicles. We did the outline. We went through the notes. Did we go through all the notes last week? I think we did, mostly. At least what I want to do. You have the rest if I didn't. First question. 1 Chronicles 21, and I'm going to always launch it to the audience first and then give you my take on it after. In 1 Chronicles 21, why did it displease God for David to take a census of the people? Anyone have an answer to that? We got mics too. Use a mic. I'm going to leave a mic over here. Where's Larry? I'm going to give one to Justin. I know he'll probably say something.
Well, the first verse says, "Then Satan stood against Israel and incited David to number Israel." So
somebody did reading. All right, so the very first verse gives us a clue. This was Satan incited. Now, where are some other places in Scripture where we have hints of Satan being the mastermind behind people's decisions and actions? So I heard Genesis, which that's 50 chapters. That's a lot of... You meant the garden, right? The garden. Yes. Someone said Judas. Yes. Justin?
I was thinking about 2 instances.
Okay.
One is Job and the other is Peter.
Okay.
Where Jesus tells Peter, Satan has asked for you that he may sift you as wheat.
Yeah. And he also tells him what? Get behind me, Satan, right? When Jesus is telling his apostles that I am going away and I must die, Peter says, no, you ain't going to die. I'll kill anyone who comes and touches you. He says, get behind me, Satan, right? Judas, it is said that had Satan already had influenced him and, was inside. How does Satan do that, by the way? When it says, Satan incited David, is it always the snake in the garden, kind of thing with Adam and Eve? Or how does that work?
When we see him, we're drawn away of our own lust.
Okay, so James 1, right? Sin, drawn by our own lust. Now here's, in Romans, I think it's the end of 13, correct me if I'm wrong, where it says to not give Satan opportunity, to not give Satan a foothold, to put up basically barriers. My big thing about people who believe basically in a non-free will world in which God causes people to do good or God causes people to do evil is verses like this, right? One of my big things that I bring up with Pharaoh and Moses, could God, with Moses, with what we know about Moses, could God have used Moses like he did Pharaoh? And the reverse is, could he have used Pharaoh like he did Moses? Why do I ask it like that? What is... Justin, go ahead.
I really think he did use Moses like he did Pharaoh and Pharaoh like he did Moses. He used them both to accomplish the same purpose, but used their own qualities in order to accomplish that purpose. Both of them were used to glorify God and show His power, but they did it in different ways.
Okay,
And they used their own tendencies and desires to accomplish that purpose.
And Romans 8 is very clear about that, by the way. No matter if you are a good vessel or a bad vessel, at the end of the day, you can't help but glorify God through God working through you. Okay? That's the overall message. Meaning, even when God, like with Pharaoh, used him the way that he did, who was glorified through all of that whole situation. My point being is, with what we know about Moses, could he have been the one with the hard heart like Pharaoh? If Pharaoh had Moses' qualities and characteristics, would it have turned out the same? Or let's say if Pharaoh was David, young David. Or if Moses, vice versa. And the point being is this, James gives us an insight into how sin happens. Now, if Moses and Pharaoh had the same lust, God could have used them in a similar way. But since their lust, or what causes them to sin, is different, then God is not going to override Moses. So let's say Moses was a morally upright individual on an average basis, right? Not everybody is perfect. But override Moses' good qualities, make him do evil, force him to do evil, and then to use him for evil purpose. Well, a good purpose, but using him to do evil. Does God do that? No.
He doesn't cause people to do something they're not already capable of.
Okay, he doesn't cause anyone. Now, could God have in some way influenced Moses so much with circumstance? And, well, maybe, but that's what Satan's point was with Job. I can change Job fundamentally from loving and serving you if I change his circumstances. Okay? Now, was Job shaken by it all? Absolutely. You can't go through what he went through and not be shaken. And even he gets to a point where he questions God in the sense of, God, why? And God finally answers, but Job repents and is changed. But Job, overall, probably handled that situation better than the most righteous person in the world could have handled. That's why he becomes the ideal sufferer. The New Testament says to have the endurance of Job, right? James 5, actually in the same, James 1 has this, James 5 has to make sure that you don't give in to this and be like Job, right? So, anyway, getting back to David here, Satan incited. How did he do so? What is a census, by the way? What is a numbering? What is 1 plus 1? I mean 2, He numbered the people. What was the big deal about that?
Usually it's done to determine how many men you had to go to war.
Okay. So normally, whenever God whenever it was done, God instructed it to be done. When there is a numbering, God says, number the people. David took it on his own to number the people. And what was his reasoning for when you read the text? He wanted to know, basically, who his followers were, who were under his command. And once again, the text does not clearly state exactly the purpose of why David did it, but you get the impression when you look at all the other numberings and all the other censuses, right, First, it was Satan incited, and there was something about it in it for David rather in it for God.
Well, because in Kings, who's the guy that says, "Are you sure you really want to do that? Are you sure you really want to number people?"
Is that Nathan?
Is
Huh?
Joab.
Is it Joab
Yeah.
in Kings? Okay.
So he knew there was something he shouldn't have been doing.
Yeah. Oh, that was, yeah. Okay. So he understood that. Joab understood that there was something wrong with this. Once again, David at this point in his life, we know what about him from Kings? He's not in his right frame of mind, right? He's not making any wise decisions when it comes to even his own family and children, the raping of his daughter, the murdering of his son, right? The murdering of Joab killing Absalom. Is it Absalom? The commander of Saul's army. Abner. Okay, there we go. Yeah. So the killing of Abner, and what does he do about it? He's sad about it. But what does sadness do in the overall? It does nothing. Okay?
He eventually did something.
Yeah. Well, but it took him a while. And eventually, when does he actually make Joab pay for that?
He did it to Saul.
He made Solomon do it, right? And he gave Solomon a whole list of executions, which, for your own son, handing over all your problems, saying, please go take care of the things I wasn't man enough to take care of. Right? That's kind of the way it's presented. Anyway, so Satan incited him. All right? Numbering of the people was supposed to be done when God told him to do it. There's Joab warned him about it. So why did he do it? I think it was look at how large my numbers are.
Well, it's also putting your confidence in your numbers and not God's will to take care of it.
Yeah, because sometimes when God tells a number, like in the book of Judges, no, don't bring this many. Let's whittle it down. You can take 300, right? You can take 300 with you to show the power and strength of God. And David was trying to show his power and strength through numbers and not through God. Most people fall right there with that question. All right, second question. 2 Chronicles 18:13. Excuse me. Micaiah said he would say what the Lord told him and that he wouldn't lie, but verse 14 seems like he lied at first. So let's read 2 Chronicles 18:13 and 14. But Micaiah said, as the Lord lives, what my God says, that I will speak. And when he had come to the king said to him, Micaiah, shall we go to Ramoth Gilead to battle, or shall I refrain? And he answered, Go up in triumph, they will be given into your hand. But 15's the key. What do we not get while reading? Tone, facial, tics, facial expressions, sarcasm. You can't get sarcasm, but the entire chapter is set up to set up the best sarcastic joke you could make. I mean, I would be disappointed in Micaiah if he didn't make the sarcastic joke, okay? Because what has Ahab already said about Micaiah? He never says anything good about me, right? But let's go ask him. Micaiah knows this. He comes to Micaiah. Hey, worthless runt. This person over here wants you to prophesy about me. I know already what you're going to say. Give me the news. Yeah, go. Go triumph. And look at verse 15. But the king said to him, how many times shall I make you swear that you speak to me nothing but the truth in the name of the Lord? he caught the sarcasm of his statement. The entirety of that conversation was set up for Micaiah to either be opposed to the king, which would cause him what? Well, he tried to put him in jail, right? Or he puts him in jail later, most likely his life, or to tell him the truth, and to also do what? Well, if he lies, who's against him? God. Chooses him as a prophet. Tells the truth, who's against him? The king. So there's a whole, it's sarcasm. And the Bible's full of it. He's being fully sarcastic. Ahab gets the sarcasm and says, come on, tell it to me straight. 1 Kings has it set up, worded a whole lot better, in my opinion, where you really see it, a lot of it better. But I don't think he lied to him. I think he, his words were a lie, but the way in which he said it, everyone knew he wasn't speaking the truth. Okay?
You brought it out last Sunday night. There's always politics involved as well as spirituality in the scriptures. And the prophet knew that the king would put him to death if he didn't say something good about him. So that's why he hid from him all the time.
Yeah.
Because a true prophet, does nothing but say what God told him to say.
Yeah.
And the kings don't like to hear what God has to say all the time because a lot of them are corrupt. All of them are corrupt in Israel, the northern kingdom. So who would want to be a prophet in Israel?
Especially directly for the king.
So they have to guard what they say, and if they're pressed, they'll tell the truth. Yeah.
But like I said, I don't think he was trying to. He was going to tell. I mean, he wasn't going. Let's say Ahab for a moment went, "Oh, okay, so I'm going to go." The way in which he said it and everything, Ahab knew. He was not, he was not being truthful in the sense of it was, he caught the joke. Go live, live long and prosper, that kind of thing. So, as you die. All right, so those are the first two questions. Those are the only two questions I really got this week. And any other questions as people were reading through 1 Chronicles? We're into 2 Chronicles. I think we got the chapter 5 this week, right? Friday. All right, so we're going to jump right to the sheet then. Solomon chosen by God. As we noted last week, look at verse A, David has been portrayed in Chronicles as the ideal king. Okay, he is set up as the standard, and that the messianic king, or the king that was going to set up this eternal kingdom, was going to be David-like. All right? And there's really no faults or fallacies, but a man to be desired for king and imitated. That's kind of how David is overall portrayed. Solomon has a parallel history in 2 Chronicles 1 through 9. When you read Solomon, his first 9 chapters, he is also portrayed almost as if he looks like he's going to be the next David. Okay? And so Solomon, chapters 1 through 9, the man's got it going on. Right? He's exactly what David had asked him to be when David gave him instruction. Follow the Lord, do exactly what the Lord asks you to do. He's asked you to build a house, build it this way, at this parameters. And he does it all, okay? He does it all, but I want to look at this word that is used 3 different times. It is said that God chose Solomon. First time is 1 Chronicles 28:6, and it says, "It is your son Solomon who shall build my house, for I have chosen him to be a son to me." And the second time is in 1 Chronicles 28:10. Where it says, "Take heed now, for the Lord has chosen you to build a house as the sanctuary." And then the third time, "My son Solomon, whom alone God has chosen, is young and inexperienced, and the work is great." This word chosen is only used of David and Solomon. Of all the kings, these are the only two in which it said the Lord chose. Who chose the very first king of Israel? Who chose Saul? Well, the people did, right? Saul was a king after whose likeness? Like the nations, right? God helped in the choosing process, right? And bringing Saul there. But ultimately, did God want Saul as king? He wasn't even from the right lineage, right? He's from the tribe of what? Benjamin. So we know, first and foremost, that was, if you've read Genesis, like I said, if you're reading it all, you're going to, well, that's going to fail, right? He's not even from the right line. Now we have David. What was David's overall purpose? Why did God choose David? That is exactly why God says he chose David. And then every king was compared to whether they had the heart of David or the heart of their fathers, which is normally an evil king. Okay? And so here is why David was chosen, to show that if you are going to rule over Israel, what do you need? You need to be in the likeness of God. Okay? Solomon, why was he chosen? What was his purpose? Build a temple. I mean, the 3 times it talks about him. It says, I chose him to build a temple. I chose him to build the sanctuary. Okay? Who the Lord chose to build the temple is young and inexperienced, to build the temple. What do we know about these two? How do these two relate when it comes to the ideal king? When you think about the king that God promised was going to be a king that did what? Was going to be after God's own heart, David-like, but also was going to build the temple. Remember, we talked about last week in 2 Chronicles, the reason why it is written is, remember, this is after the Babylon captivity, the rebuilding of the temple, and the major emphasis is on that they were going to have a temple that was going to be built by David's son or lineage. And when we get to the end of Chronicles, what's the very last 2 verses? Who's building this new temple? Right? Solomon's temple's gone. David is gone. And when you get to the very end of 2 Chronicles, Cyrus, God says, God has chosen me to rebuild the temple. I'm telling, if you've read 1st, 2nd Chronicles, it is repeated over and over and over again that this temple was going to be built by the son of David. This temple's destroyed. David's not here. Now we have a Persian king who's claiming that this new temple that's being built is being built because of God giving him a decree. So what do we know about this temple that was rebuilt? It's not the one Chronicles promise. It's not being built by David's own lineage. Okay? But anyway, that's kind of going further than where I wanted to go tonight, but to just kind of remind us. But this idea of being chosen by God, what does it mean to be chosen by God? Okay. Sometimes people are just chosen for a specific reason, aren't they? Okay. Who was told that they were a chosen vessel? Oh, Mary. Oh, good one. What was she chosen to do? All right. She was the mother of Jesus. Who else was chosen for specific purposes? Okay. Everyone. All. Right? But do you get the point that this concept of being chosen in the Old Testament is normally there's a specific task that person must do. Here's the question we have to ask ourselves. Does chosen equal saved? Justin?
You mentioned Romans before, and it talking about Pharaoh, and God said that he chose Pharaoh. He raised him up for this purpose. That is pretty much the definition of chosen.
Yep.
You can be used to accomplish the purpose of God, whether or not you're doing it on God's side or not. It doesn't really matter. You're going to accomplish God's goal, God's will, whether you want to or not.
Yeah. Well,
whether you're going to be an advocate or whether he's going to use you in a different way is kind of up to you.
Think about Judas. Judas was chosen, was he not? He was chosen just like the other apostles. Handpicked, and Jesus called them out and says, I choose you. Pikachu, right? Handpicked, chosen. Now, he was chosen to be an apostle. Okay? But we also know something about prophecy, that one of Jesus' closest friends, companions, was going to give him up for what? How much?
30 pieces of silver.
Let's follow this train for a moment. Just because Judas did this mean he was lost? Everybody in the world did that, by the way. On the cross, where was everybody? Where was Peter? I don't know. Right? Where's his own family? We got Mother and John. You know, his mother and John were sitting there. Nicodemus, right? But where was everybody? Peter did the same thing. What did Peter have that Judas didn't?
He had godly sorrow.
No. Those two go together. This is going way off this, but I once the juices go, you got to go. What did Judas do to himself? Okay. I'm going to make a statement that I believe. Suicide is not the unforgivable sin. There are people who've committed suicide who have gone through traumatic brain that are not in their right mind. I don't believe just because somebody commits suicide, they're automatically going to hell. The same way I believe that if you're in a car accident and you say, oh, and die, that does not put you automatically in hell. Okay? But, with that said, this suicide was about not facing the consequences of his decision. Was he sorry what he did? I mean, he tried to give the money back. Did he not? He tried to give the money back because he knew what he did was wrong. That's, in a sense, being sorry, is it not? But for 2 Corinthians 7 talks about this worldly sorrow versus godly sorrow. And Paul specifically points out, you want to know how I know you have godly sorrow? Because I saw your life change for the good. He said, up until this point, you had this kind of sorrow, which does not lead to change. Let me tell you, there are people who do bad things, who have worldly sorrow, who are sorry for a time,